And then we come to staffing reductions, which is another way in which one balances the budget. And so there are a number of things here. No net new positions created. And this is one of the few times, I mean, even in some other budget years, there have been one or two positions because of priorities that have come along or whatever. But we've been very clear that we're not adding new positions into the budget, and although that's a disappointment to a number of departments that we're hoping, given workload issues, et cetera, that's just not something that we can do, particularly when we're talking about cuts in areas. The other thing we're doing is reducing, and this is a number that's come out of the budget conferences, 58 formerly funded permanent positions, and 4 of them are currently filled. I want to stress, these are not the ghost positions that were talked about before. These are positions that were funded and now are not funded. And I think it's a tribute to the departments that they have been holding some of these positions vacant rather than filling them, knowing that we might very well have this discussion in the future. And these are throughout the county. So the expectation is that this will be addressed and that one can look at possible reassignments or whatever, but this is what we're talking about. For those positions that are on the books that are unfunded and haven't been filled in a while, those are the positions where, there's going to be some cleanup. But there are departments who operate from the premise of salary savings. And what that means is that you leave the positions in. At any given time, they might be filled, but at any given time, 10% of them, but different 10%, might not be filled just because of turnover and the length of time it takes to fill positions, et cetera. So, it's not going to reduce every single vacant position, but it will clean up the roles. And in this particular case, we're talking about deleting formally funded permanent positions. Oh, yeah. We're also talking about reducing use of extra help positions whenever possible. That's certainly a salary cost, and in the case you talk about layoffs, the expectation is that extra help positions go first before you touch permanent positions. No, we're not saying get rid of all extra help, but it is an area that can be saved in. We're also talking about no increases in overtime in those departments that use that. The expectation is that departments will manage to be assigned overtime, and that they will be cautious, because overtime is a very inefficient way of purchasing staff time. And then we are researching additional position reductions and/or mandatory time off. The extent to which we will need to do that will depend on how much of the gap we're able to close, and we'll be able to speak very specifically about that on June 17th. Right now, what we're doing is researching, and I'd have to say that almost every day there's some kind of shift. Sometimes shift up in revenues, sometimes shift down, and on the appropriation side, those shifts as well. So we're waiting until it kind of settles out. But that's what we're looking at in terms of staffing reductions. Okay, geographic data. There was a specific request to look at geographic data, and we gave a small chart to departments to complete, and we got a variety of results, because in some cases it was difficult for them. The costs aren't necessarily broken out by geographic area. They might know which staff are assigned geographically, but they may or may not have their client numbers broken down geographically. So I'll say we began with a collection of geographic data in the budget conferences in May. For the majority of departments, in particular general government, internal support, and then small departments like, say, air quality, they don't have post offices or staff, but they do serve county-wide. In some cases, that means that people come to the office in Ukiah. In some cases, it means that the people go out to the person's location on the coast. So it depends on what the service is. And then you have the public services that do have, post sites and staff, and they are in particular public safety, so that would be, the DA's office, public defender's office, the, sheriff's office, and probation. Those are the key public safety departments. Health and Human Services Agency, Department of Transportation with their road yards, planning and building, and the library all have post sites and post staff. And so for the next part of this project, we're gonna focus in specifically on those departments so that we can get a better sense of what we're doing. So in terms of geographic distribution, the next thing we need to work on is to quantify the staffing and resources that are committed on a geographic basis, what services are provided, and the core infrastructure and the documented needs. And so, I'd like to say that this is a simple process, but it's gonna take more digging, and we're committed to doing that. The other thing though is reviewing access issues for those services that are centralized, and there may be things that can be done through internet access or some other things to look at that, and that should